What's going on, guys? Briar Rabbit here. Today we're going to be taking a look at this guy. This is the 8BitDo arcade stick. This came out late this year, and it's pretty interesting for quite a few reasons. First of all, the price. It's only $90. It's about $90 over on Amazon.com. And I think that represents a pretty good value considering all the features this thing packs in. What are those features? Well, it's compatible with a bunch of different devices, including the Nintendo Switch, PC, Steam, NVIDIA Shield, Mister, Raspberry Pi, and basically anything that uses the X input standard as a controller input. Also, it's wireless. It supports two different wireless standards, Bluetooth and 2.4G. The Bluetooth stuff is all built in. To use the 2.4G, it's got a little dongle that it hides in the back here, and you just plug this in via USB to whatever device you want to use it with, and you're off to the races. Besides being wireless, it also works as a wired controller. In the box here, it comes with a very long USB-C to USB-A cable. So into your device, like your PC or whatever, you plug in the USB-A side, and this device takes the USB-C side. The USB-C receiver, or the USB-C plug, is actually hidden in here with that dongle. So you actually plug this in right behind that dongle. And then the door here actually has a slot in it to hold onto the cable. So the cable has kind of a strain relief. So you're not going to break the connector off of the arcade stick. If you yank it or something, you're more likely to break the wire, which is the cheapest and easiest to replace part there. It's a nice feature. Looking at the top of the controller, you have some nice features as well. You have these two kind of dial switches here, and the one on the left here is to switch it between different modes. So if you move it all the way to the left here, it switches into Nintendo Switch mode. If you move it to the middle, it turns the controller off, and if you turn it to the right, it goes into X input mode. So that'd be if you're using it with a Raspberry Pi or a PC. We're going to switch it over to Switch mode here. This next dial here actually sets the arcade stick to emulate a different stick on your controller. So if you set it to the left here, it emulates being the left analog stick on a controller. If you set it to the middle, then it becomes the D-pad. And if you set it to the right, then it emulates the right analog stick on a controller. I don't know why you'd want to use that. I'm sure there's some game that you need it for, though. It's not analog, of course. It remains digital. But if your game forces you to use an analog stick for input, then you have that option to switch which one is going to be used here. I also have a pair button, a turbo button. You can map any of the buttons to be turbo mode. Home button that is used for the Nintendo Switch. I also find it useful for programming for menus for the Raspberry Pi or for the Mister. Down here, we have a switch that goes between Bluetooth and 2.4G, depending on how you're using it wirelessly. Over here, we have a select button, a start button, and on the right side of the controller, you can see the player 1, player 2 button. That can be useful for arcade games, for selecting which player you're going to be. And then finally, we have the arcade stick itself, which I think feels pretty good. It's a little bit looser than what other arcade sticks I've used, but it does feel good, and it's got a positive click to it, so you really do feel when it's being used. You can feel when it's kind of registering an input. And the buttons are pretty cool too. Buttons feel solid, they feel responsive, but they also do something cool. You can see on the top here, it's labeled which buttons they are, but if you change it from switch mode to X input modes, different LEDs light up to tell you that the buttons have switched. So, for instance, in switch mode, this button is Y, this button is X, and then we got B and A. But when you switch it over, it reverses to Y, X, A, B. So just the difference between the X input way of doing things and the Nintendo Switch way of doing things. Very convenient, because if you get some kind of on-screen prompt, it's easy to just look down at the controller and know right away which button you have to tap for a menu or for whatever. Overall, the arcade stick feels heavy. It feels solid. The bottom of the stick is made out of plastic. It has these big rubber feet on it that really do a good job of keeping it stable on your gaming surface, like a desk or a table or whatever. You can see when I move it side to side or left to right, it's not sliding on the table. It's actually shaking the whole table instead. It is pretty heavy. It feels good in my lap. It feels pretty stable in my lap, even though it's not as big as some other arcade sticks for lap use. I do prefer a octagonal gate on my arcade sticks, and this one is square. So if you kind of go around and rotate the arcade stick, you're gonna feel like a square kind of, well, a gate under there, which is great for some games, and other games you might prefer an octagonal. One of the cool things about this is that 8BitDo says that this thing is pretty upgradable. So you'll be able to buy like higher end arcade parts or an octagonal gate and actually open it up and swap them out. It's actually something I'm looking forward to trying as a project. I've never really upgraded an arcade stick before, or kind of customized an arcade stick before, and I'd like to do that. Although I will say, it's not because of a lack of quality on these parts, it's just a fun project I'd like to take on in the future. So look forward to that video soon. Overall, I've been pretty impressed by this arcade stick. I've used it on the Nintendo Switch and the PC, as well as the Mr. device, and kind of without a doubt, no matter what input I'm using, whether it be Bluetooth, using it over the wired connection, or using the 2.4 gigahertz receiver or transmitter, everything has worked pretty well. The biggest problem I had was just figuring out how to pair it with the Nintendo Switch, but it does come with instructions on how to do that. It's just kind of a weird menu that you got to go into the Switch to do that kind of stuff. But everything else has been pretty easy. Hooking it up to Windows, Windows recognized it no problem. Steam recognized it no problem. Played Street Fighter V. I was off running on Street Fighter V in no time with it. Again, I've really had no issues as far as connectivity goes. It feels like a solid device. It looks cool. You know, looks are in the eye of the beholder, right? But obviously the thing is styled after the NES Advantage arcade stick from back in the day. I love the way it looks. If I do modify it, I'm going to pretty much keep it looking the way it looks. But, you know, I've been really happy with this thing. I think it represents a real good value. It's got a whopping big battery. It feels heavy. It feels sturdy. It's not made out of metal. It's not made out of wood. It is made out of plastic, so it's not going to be as heavy and as sturdy as some of your really expensive arcade sticks. But at $90, I think this represents a great value, especially since it can be used with so many devices. It can be used wirelessly or wired. It really represents a lot of value there. So let's hook this thing up to a Nintendo Switch and see how it performs. All right, we now have it connected via Bluetooth to the Nintendo Switch. We'll check out a couple of games here. We're going to start off with Street Fighter Ultra 2, Street Fighter 2 Ultra, the Final Challengers. This is a weird game because it's actually an HD remake of Street Fighter 2 Ultra that came out for the Xbox 360, and I believe it was ported to the Switch. I believe that's the history of this game, but what you see is that there's actually a version of Street Fighter 2 Ultra, or Super Street Fighter 2, that was updated with HD graphics. It's a bizarre thing, but I'll be honest with you, I kind of like it, possibly because it is so bizarre. But we'll just go into arcade mode, we'll leave it in normal, and we'll see if my previous button mapping held. We may have to swap up the button mapping again. The moves come off fine. You know, it's on Bluetooth. There is theoretically lag because it is, you know, wirelessly on Bluetooth. All Bluetooth controllers are going to have some lag to them. It's not enough that I can feel it, I'll tell you that. But I'm by no means a Street Fighter expert or arcade stick expert. But I would say that this is completely reasonable to play on the Nintendo Switch with an HD remake of Street Fighter 2. You know, this is fun. This feels, you know, it feels like I'm using an arcade stick. The moves are coming out right. The stick itself feels responsive. The buttons do as well. Everything is kind of placed where you'd expect it to be. You know, you don't have to relearn where anything is. That hurt. You know, everything feels right with it. Let's switch games here. So this isn't a game that I would normally play with an arcade stick, but I do think you'd probably feel lag, like input lag, when playing this game fairly well. So let's give it a shot here. This is Castlevania, obviously. This is the Castlevania collection for the Switch. And Oh, we'll just give it a shot, see what happens. It feels quick. It feels responsive. When I hit the button, things are happening when I expect them to happen. You know, there's... It's a funny game to check latency on. I don't know it's a wise game to check latency on because it's one of those games that there's a delay to actually having actions happen, right? When you hit the whip, you know, the whip goes back before it goes forward. But it feels good. I mean, I wouldn't normally play this game with a stick. I'd play it with a controller. But I don't really feel like I'm at a disadvantage here. Okay, so I've gone and set it up with a PC here. You can see we're playing Street Fighter 5, even though it says Street Fighter Alpha on the screen. We did use the 2.4 gigahertz wireless remote. So that's plugged in via USB to the PC itself. I switched the input over to X input mode and the receiver over to 2.4 gigahertz mode. And let's try it out with some Street Fighter 5. All right, here we are in Street Fighter 5. And again, everything feels fast and responsive. There's nothing out of the ordinary here. Frankly, that's the story for this controller to me, is that it's doing everything I expected to do from the specs on the box, but frankly, the only thing surprising about it is the price at which it's doing it. It just seems like a very good value for all of the features that it's giving me. You know, do I wish it would support PlayStation and Xbox? Of course I do. But for what I'm going to use it for on the Mr. PC and Nintendo Switch, you know, it offers great wireless connectivity, so I don't necessarily have to wire up to the, you know, to the Switch in the living room or the Mister. I can do it all wirelessly, and I feel like I'm still getting responsive controls and that arcade stick feel, you know, which is, frankly, just a lot of fun on certain games, whether it's on the Mister and I'm playing actual arcade games or whether it's here on the PC and I'm just playing some Street Fighter 5. You know, it gives me the arcade stick feel that I'm after, and it does it at a really good price with a ton of features. I gotta say, I'm pretty impressed with this thing. Start the timer now. Done. Time.